Good morning, everyone. John471 here to discuss the S&P 500. Derivatives trading is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. It is Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. Taking a quick look at our news, our 8:30 news driver is Empire State Manufacturing. Second or third tier, it's just a regional Fed survey. We have a few short-term auctions, and at 1, we have a White House press briefing. This is going to be the press secretary discussing the trade situation. So this will be important. We have the discount rate minutes as well. Those are less important, but I would be aware of this press briefing at 1. That's what we have today. Let's look at some charts. This is the S&P 500 futures full session daily bars. Just to illustrate that we're still within the range of the huge day we had last week. We were able to take the high of that range the prior day in full session, but not during RTH, got the pullback, and we have been grinding higher since then. One time framing. Let's go to a RTH chart. If I can find it, here we are. So this is RTH only, and what we see here is this is the wide-ranging day that we all remember. And since that day, we've gotten the pullback, which gave us a pretty finished low, didn't close the singles, left a chunk of the singles open. But since then, we've been able to put in successive higher lows, and we've been able to move value higher. Also important is we've pretty much, yesterday was Monday, and we pretty much established that we are accepting prices above the prior week's settle. The prior week settled right here, and the prior week's high is right here. So pretty clearly, we're looking for a test of this high. If we can stay above the prior settle, we're looking for a test of this high. Just a very clear one or the other situation. We're looking for us to either continue this grind and push up for a test of the prior week's high and potentially the singles, and then we don't know what happens here. Or we're looking to grind lower for a test, a retest of the full session or of the prior week's settle, which also could result in potential support as it did yesterday. But more likely, it was already tapped on. If we get it again, I would sort of expect to see a little bit of reversion lower. The thing is, if we revert lower into this area, there's not really very much going on here to support us. It's just kind of like a very choppy uptrend. There's a little bit of potential support in this area, which I can highlight quickly. So if we look at the composite of just this area, what we can see is that we do have an HVN that's relatively pronounced right here, right around the 5,300. So that would be an important area for me. If we lose this settlement, this prior week settlement area, I would expect through here, I would expect some static right here. And if we were able to find support, we'd revert. But if we don't, the next waypoint would be this this area, the remaining singles around Century. So let's go to a smaller time frame chart and plan for specific price action. Okay, here we are on an intraday chart. It's a 2 points by 8 PNF. Let's go over some ideas. Quickly, we'll mark out areas that are important. Here's the prior day's low, RTH. It's also our 1 time frame break. Here's the area where there's the HVN I pointed out, right around the 5,300s. You can see that there's a lot of structure right here, obviously. And then further down below, the 5150s, we have these are the 5200s. But further down, we have the low of the single print low. Let me find that quickly just so we can be aware of it. There. So I'll just leave it right there like that. So we have this structure, the area around the 51 or 52, 5300s, so many century figures here, and our singles area down here with century. Above, we have a yesterday's high. We have the prior week's high up to the gap zone, gap mid, gap close, and our prior month settle above, which is our really important area. So we have our prior month's low right here. Let's go over our bullish ideas first. And no surprise, I mean, you see here, we had made the push lower yesterday to test the prior week's settlement. I believe we tested it right to the tick and then reverted higher, but weren't able to get the high. Now, looking at the profile here, it's like everything was really balanced right here. Let's zoom in because this is actually fairly important. So in this profile, what we see is there is an attempt to hold here, and we fell through. And falling through, we fell through, and it easily could have continued, but instead it just got bought right back up. And all the buying it's like we checked those prices and buyers were more aggressive. To me, it looked like there was a willingness to sell these prices, but the impatience of the buyers, there's buyer impatience. So that's what I'm reading. They bought it back up. So I'm a little bit more bullish because I'm thinking that for me, and this is, again, past performance, not indicative, but I'm assuming that the buying quorum in this region is a little bit more impatient, which for me gives me a tentative bias for higher prices. So let's go over it. If this low, this is yesterday's low, if this holds, we tried to retrace, we were unable to test yesterday's low overnight, and here we're just kind of seeping upwards as we've kind of tended to do. So here's the key. In my opinion, again, if we can get through this overnight high, we have a high, slightly lower high, and now this high. If we can get through this, and especially if we can get through this without taking the overnight low, and this would probably be a frustrating trade. It would be harder to get on because we're not giving the nice deep pullback that shows us that the sellers are exhausted and then returning. We're not doing that. We're just kind of creeping up higher. So if we continue this, what we're doing now, just creeping up higher, if we get to this high, I would expect there to be some two-way action as short-term longs take their scale. But if we're able to accept these prices and hold on a pullback and push through to century into these highs, I would expect some stops to go off into the prior week's high. If we can get the prior week's high and we can still find support on all this structure or still expand rotations, then we're looking for the gap, which is also the prior month's low. This area, there is potential in this area. If we hit this area, prior month's low, there's potential for us to just find a wave of sellers that just forces us back down into this range. If we do that and we can't get back above this range, then the longs are over for me, and I would be looking for chop or potentially lower. But if we hit this area, it's very possible for us to instead hit this area, the prior month's low, higher time frame, and see instead rotations continue to expand as stops go off. In which case, if I see stops go off and rotations expanding, I would be expecting a test of gap mid. And if gap mid is not rejected, I would look for a close of the gap, which would be the first extended target. Same thing, if that area continues, then my extended target above would be these singles in the prior month settle and VPOC, which would be a huge target, a very significant target. So basically what we're looking for is if we can get here and hold, then we're looking for the prior week's high. If the prior week's high doesn't reject, then we're looking for the gap, and the gap is an area where we might see stops go off, prior month's low, and might propel us to gap close. If we have anything left at the end of gap close, this is the key target. This is the long idea. Could this happen if we take the overnight low? It's possible. Yeah. What would that look like? Let's think about that briefly. So if we take the overnight low, essentially that would mean that we're likely to get a test of the settlement of the prior month's or prior week's settlement. Now, here's what I would be looking for here. If we, instead of getting that move I just talked about, if we flush and pierce this area, so there's two things that could happen. Number one, if we just test these prices and we're just stopping out longs, it could just be a lick check where we try and then boom, and then we just recover. And the next thing you know, it's all like this didn't even happen. So if we get that like a push, a quick check, I don't know how far it will go, but if it just checks and returns, then the bull bias is on for me. If it falls out of here and tries to lick check, but can't and falls back out of range, then I would be looking for lower prices, especially if it's unable to get back above full session levels or full session VPOC. There's a pretty aggressive taper on this overnight profile, so be aware of that. If there's, and let's zoom in and just show that real quick because that is important. This taper on the overnight profile here is important because this is just offers that are just piling up that keep getting put up here as buyers try to lift, and we just keep putting more offers into there. So this could easily just end up being too many offers and we get this kind of reversion into this area like I mentioned. So this is very possible. The other scenario would be a scenario where those offers keep coming, but we eventually pop above them and the buyers are just unsatisfied and we keep going. But that needs to be mentioned. Anyway, so circling back, done our bullish ideas. Bearish ideas would involve then either a failure to get this high or a push, an attempt at the high and a rejection. But the key point would be we break this century, get to the prior week settle, and we start to zipper. And we know that could be a lick check, as we just said, that goes higher. But we're talking about the scenario where instead of going higher and lick checking, it fails to recover this range and starts to work lower. If we see this happen and we really get kicked out of this range below these 5400s into the 5391, then I will be looking for the prices and zone right above century, that HVN that I just talked about on the larger chart. This would be the first waypoint, this region. Call it 5300 up to 5325. That would be the first place to take profit on a short trade. If this area does not provide support. And how could this provide support? Well, what could happen? We've seen this happen a bunch of times. Everybody thinks this area is where we should hold. This is where the buyers are. So what could happen is all of a sudden, all of those weak longs, we drop into here, all the weak longs get stopped out and you see like a messy just trade in here. And all it is just weak longs getting stopped. And then all of a sudden, all the weak longs are gone and boom, we just get back above and just resume. So that could happen, that we could just drop into this area and this whole area could be a stop run that takes multiple hours and then we just start to resume. That's a possibility. But if that doesn't happen and we get into this century and we can't get out, we start to get trapped in this area of trade and we can't get back out, then I would be looking for the low of this area of trade, the 5251s. That would be the next area for me to scale. Now, if we hit that area and we are unable to find support there, then I would be open to a continued grind lower. If we break this area, I do believe there will be buyers waiting. So for us not to just lick check, chop around, and then start to recover higher, I would need to see a continued force of selling, like continued grinding, trending lower, in which case I would be looking for century again. And then the key target on any pullback from this area would be these singles. I'm not expecting to hit these singles today. Even if we get a break, I'm kind of expecting us to end up getting caught up in this area and then reverting higher. But this is the key target. If we start falling back into this balance and we lose this 5250, this is the key area to be tested at some point. Maybe later this week, who knows? Anyway, that's it. That's what I got for you. It's 15 minutes, which is already a bit too long, but I think I was relatively complete. We know that the key area we're looking for is, excuse me, the key area that will help us decide the trade will be this area. And that includes whether it is tested and what the reaction is if it's tested. You know, we push into it. What's the reaction? Do we find buyers? Do we go higher? Do we find additional sellers? Do we go lower? Or do we not even test it, and we just float higher, in which case we'd be looking at these highs as the key area to make a decision at. So that's what I got. Now just hanging out in this area would obviously be a nothing scenario. I don't think that would happen. I think if we get a nothing scenario, it'd be more likely to happen in this area with a quick drop and then chop. But we'll see what happens. Keep in mind, we have the press briefing at 1. That's probably going to be our most important news. We also have Empire State 8:30, less important. That's what I got for you. I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope you're having a wonderful morning. I hope your wonderful morning continues. And I hope you find a way today to improve your trading that is not dependent upon your P&L, but is instead dependent on your process. That's what I got. Everyone have a great day. Ciao.